must be on my way. The time is
Brick was lost at sea about a year ago. Thought he saw a bird and he swam out to pet it. He never came back.
We all love Brick, even though he never had a phone number or address or social security number. In 6 years of working at the station, he never cashed a paycheck.
Sweet Brick.
He was a sensitive man, though. He told me he wanted to donate his organs to science before he died, so he could see where they ended up.
No.
He'll long be remembered, and he'll be sorely missed.
Thank you, Reverend.
No.
Oh, come on!
Brick was a great man.
Really?
And I will miss him so much. And I will not rest until I find his killer.
What?
His killer?
It's hard for me to believe that he is gone.
He's not gone.
I feel that I just saw him yesterday
Are you probably talking to yourself in a mirror?
when I got the news. I didn't know how to make sense out of it.
None of us understand.
Why? Why did you take it from us?
You're clearly standing in front of us, Brick.
What?
Brick?
Brick is dead!
No,
Brick's
Brick
alive.
is dead! Look at him!
he's not
He's
dead.
not dead, Brick. You're not dead.
You're Brick.
Brick, it's you.
He's dead!
No.
You are Brick. Touch yourself.
I am Brick!
Yes.
I'm alive!
Yes!
Of course you are.
It's-
Oh, for heaven's
You kind of want to slug him. You want to slug him.
There will be no slugging in this church today. I just thought that was the best part of the clip, so decided to leave that in there. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. If you had Anchorman 2 on your bingo card to get us started this morning, then you win today, okay? You win at life if you saw that coming. I love that clip. I think it's okay to laugh in church. It is not what I expected, when I started prepping this sermon either, but it's what God gives you, and so we're going to go with it. Do me a favor this morning. Turn to the person next to you and say, I'm alive. Go ahead. Let them know. Whether you're upstairs in the worship center or you're downstairs in the gathering, we are so glad that you're here today. In fact, turn to the person next to you and say, you're alive too. Turn to somebody else and let them know. And let them know indeed. Sometimes we need those kind of reminders. And it's a good reminder today, not just that we are alive. We are glad that we're here. We're glad that we're alive. But we're glad that Jesus is alive as well. In fact, happy Easter, everybody. We're so glad to have you here. We do have this chant, this phrase. We only bring it out once a year. So I like to go home after a few Easter services just feeling like I barely have a voice left because we celebrated so well. So if I say, He is risen, you say? He is risen. Wonderful, wonderful. You understood the assignment, and that's great. So glad that you're here. So glad that we have good news. Aren't you? That we could stand in the midst of a gathering like this and living in a world like this and understand, even when you don't know what's going to happen next, right? That God has an answer for it. And so we are here to continue that journey and trying to understand exactly what it is that Easter means and the difference that the resurrection of Jesus Christ can make in our life. And today, as we do that, as we come to the end of the Gospel of Matthew that we've been looking at this year, we continue this journey that we've been on. It's called Jesus for Real. We're just going through 4 books of the Bible this year, just Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And here's the question that we're after. Who is Jesus? Who is he? Right? What voice do you listen to? What did he care about? What did he long for? What did he stand up to defend? And where do we go to figure out which version of Jesus that's around here, right? Some would say he's a historical figure. Some would say he's the Son of God, and everywhere in between. Where do you go to figure out who he is? Even in John chapter 8, I got a picture of the Bible up here, right? They're asking him this question in verse 25. Who are you? And maybe that's a question you're wrestling with today. I don't know many things in life. My family and my coworkers will tell you that. But one of the things that I know is you start talking about Jesus, especially around the Easter dinner table, you're going to find, right, there are some different opinions, and it can be a very divisive question. And it's a divisive question because for a long time, a lot of different people have been answering this question, who is Jesus, in a lot of different ways. For a long time, a lot of people have had very different experiences relating not just to Jesus Christ himself, but also his people. And so that's led to a whole host of different questions. And I just want you to know today, wherever it is that you're on this spectrum of what you believe about this guy named Jesus Christ, we want you to know that wrestling with this question is very, very, very important. And I want to make the case today that it's important to wrestle with this question. I actually want to make the case today that is the question that we need to wrestle with because, well, Brick in Anchorman 2 is running around saying, I'm alive. Not all of us are saying that, right? We are longing for life, right? A lot of us are simply saying instead, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. There's so much more that I have. There's so much more that I long for. There's so much more that I just wish that if I could change this one thing about my life, man, it would be incredible. It would make such a difference. And we find ourselves living in the midst of that tension. And Jesus had something to say about this. I think he knew that we were going to find ourselves in this situation as human beings, right? Where one day can just be incredible. And it just takes seconds, doesn't it? To get a phone call or an email or some kind of message or make some kind of discovery. I mean, heaven forbid someone would knock on your door and give you bad news, right? And it just changes. And it leaves us asking the question, where can I find life? Well, Jesus has an answer for us today. This is what he says in John chapter 11. He says, I am the resurrection and the life. That anyone who believes in me will live. Everybody say live. Live. We get to live. Even after dying, everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never, ever die. What I also love is just a few verses down the road from that Jesus says. The thief's purpose is to steal and kill and destroy, but my purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. Rich and satisfying. 2 words that God has created you to live that would describe the life that God has given you. And I just want to ask you today, when you think about the life that you're living, what words would you say describe you right now? Do rich and satisfying come to mind? Right? Is it chaotic? Is it stressed? Is it overwhelmed that it actually got above 37 degrees today and the sun came out for once? Like, how bipolar has Iowa weather been lately? Holy cow. We need a seatbelt for this roller coaster that we're on. What kind of words would you use to describe your life? And it's easy, right, to come up with great words, rich and satisfying and amazing and awesome. And my favorite, fine. Everything's fine. I don't love that word, right? My life is fine. You were created for so much more than fine. I need you to know that this morning, right? There's a lot of words that we would use to describe exactly what it is that we're experiencing. And there's a lot of stories in this church of a lot of people who have been through some really great ups and some really tough downs. So this morning I thought, God laid on my heart to invite my friend Tony to share a little bit about his story. And here's the word. I've just only known Tony a little while, continuing to get to know his story, but we sat down and talked about his story a little bit. And we actually sat down and recorded it. And here's the word. There's a lot of words that I could use to describe Tony's life, but one of the things in his experience is pain. Anybody else in this room relate to that? I know a lot of you, and I know you know what pain feels like as well. It's easy to get disconnected from it, though. It's easy to pretend like it didn't happen. It's easy to pretend like our pain doesn't matter. And I want you to know that it does. And so as you think about and listen to Tony's story, think about your own life. What are the words that you would use to describe what you're feeling and what you're experiencing today? And see if you can't just tap into the possibility there might just be a longing for more. Let's take a look.
It's quite the story. How I wound up in this chair is, it's a wild story. To begin, I think back to, me being a kid and never really feeling just quite comfortable in my skin. College and, into my 20s is when I really started to find, the alcohol and drug combination, to the tune of jail experiences and drug overdoses. And it's clear now at this point, in my late 20s that, I've got a problem on my hand. My father stood by and watched. He was an alcoholic for a big part of his life, and he came and picked me up from my house at the time, and he drugged me to a meeting. Through that process, became a lot closer with him, and just in time for him to start drinking again. Ultimately, that his drinking never really righted itself, and he ended up, losing that battle. I went to go pick him up. I was a couple hours late getting there. I was late getting out of work, and I found him, unresponsive, and of course called an ambulance, and we got him to the hospital that night. But he had suffered too much brain damage, and we had to say goodbye to him that night. I remember a good friend of mine showing up at the hospital that night, a good friend in sobriety. We were standing outside, and I was playing that game like we can do sometimes, blaming myself for not, showing up when I said I would. And he looks at me and he says, "That's really impressive that you think that you hold the power to choose who lives and who dies on this earth." And that hit me like a ton of bricks. Through all those years, I had never really developed a relationship with God. Never really counted on him for anything. Just really never let him play a role in my life at that point until those words came out of his mouth that night. It was just a couple years later, and I ended up meeting my girls' mom, who I would, marry soon thereafter, and ultimately we would lose her, and then it's survival for months and months and months. And it's, Julie was an amazing stay-at-home mom, carried all of the weight in our home. Yeah, I went to work and I basically handed her a paycheck, so I had a lot to sort out. How to be a mom and a dad, and learn how to cook meals and grocery shop and do laundry and do it all, and support 4 children.
I think being a dad is hard enough. I can't imagine having to be a dad and a mom at the same time. But from everything I hear, Tony does it, and he does it well. Sometimes he doesn't know how he does it, but he does it, and he does it well. And the reality is there's a lot of pain in his life, and you can hear that in Tony's story, right? Time and time again, pain seems to show up, and what we long for in those moments of pain is resurrection. We long for resurrection, don't we? Where do you long for resurrection? If you could just ask God to change one thing, bring one person back, heal you from some specific instance, right? Maybe go back in your story and some wound doesn't happen. What? If you could ask God to resurrect something, to heal something, to transform it, what would it be? I don't want you to leave here today, whether you're downstairs or upstairs, without taking the opportunity to name that thing. Because it's in your heart and it's valid. It's a desire that's there for a reason. And we don't just want you to name it in your heart and your soul today, but we actually have this giant, ugly wall, temporary wall in the worship center because of our construction project. And we had the idea a couple weeks ago to put a mural up and give you guys an opportunity, right? You don't normally get to write on walls at church, but today you can. And we turned it into a prayer wall, and we're going to leave it up for a month because I want everybody else to know that they're not the only one that longs for a little piece of heaven to come back into their life. Right? I wrote my grandfather's name. I wrote my Uncle Harold. I wrote a bunch of family stuff that's going on, right? There are so many things. All you have to do, I went and picked up this thing called a newspaper the other day. I don't know if anybody knows what this is. You would not believe how much they charge for these things these days. The world has changed. And maybe it's not seeing a loved one that's in heaven again someday. Maybe you have been blessed and haven't had to attend a lot of funerals. Maybe you just want this world to settle down. Check out these headlines, right? The government. What? Chaos in the government? No way. Prices going up. War. Right? The one that really got me was on the front here. It says payphones used to connect Gen Zers to older adults. And it's this neuroscience company that started a social experiment. They took a phone in Boston, a payphone. Remember those? Payphone, and it says call a boomer on the side of it, and it's connected directly to another payphone in a nursing home in Reno, Nevada, and it says call a Zoomer, right? because they're reaching two age demographics experiencing unprecedented levels of loneliness. Where do you long for resurrection in your life? It's worth thinking about that today, because the more you understand your need for it, the more you're going to appreciate the fact that Jesus has already taken care of it, right? We have loads to long for, you and I do. And I'm continuing to discover this. Even as a pastor, I was just trying to count it up. I think in my career here, and I've been with Hope for 17 years, I don't know, 11 or 12 of those as a pastor or something. I think I've been probably done over 100 funerals at this point. And I got to tell you, even a month and a half ago, whatever, in February, I learned something else again. God touched my heart again, and it was kind of cool, but also just tragic. This is Joni. Joni, I didn't get to know her personally, but she seemed like an incredible lady, except for the fact that she was a Hawkeye fan. I don't know what's with that. Go State, that's all I would say to that. But she's an incredible, incredible lady. And I got to do and be a part of, was honored to be a part of Joni's funeral because, well, I know her daughter and I know some of her grandkids. In fact, they come to the student ministry here, and my daughter got to play volleyball with one of Joni's granddaughters, and it was a tough situation. We were all at this tournament in Omaha and had a great time once a headache went away from all the volleyball whistles all weekend. And we were glad to be home and did all those things, and then I got the call. And it was the call that they came home and found out that she had passed away. And I think the hardest part for me, these stories, man, they just stick with you sometimes. The hardest part for me was that when they got to her house and started cleaning it out, the thing that was on her laptop was the live stream of the volleyball tournament, right? Wasn't able to always be out and about and do the things she wanted to do, but she was connected and she cared. And death came and took her. And that leaves a hole in our lives. It leaves a gap that needs to be filled. And so we're continuing to plan the funeral, and it was hard, and it was difficult to go through, and we're in the planning meeting, and, you start picking out songs, and, there's some normal ones here. I can only imagine they were talking about some hymns and some different things, Amazing Grace, whatever. And then Jay, the son, goes, hey, can we do Let It Be by the Beatles? And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about rock and roll in the Lutheran church, And then I realized, you know what? One of our core values is we worship God, not tradition. You see, where tradition divides, separates people from God, we want to get rid of that. But if it brings people closer to God, we're all about that around here, right? That's why we use Anchorman 2 at the beginning of Easter sermons, okay? And I go, yeah, let's give it a shot. Let's try it. And I'm sitting at this funeral, and I'm bawling like a baby because I hadn't taken the time to really think about the words. When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary, Paul McCartney's speaking to his mom, right? Mother Mary comes to me. He's writing a song about his mom. When she comes to me speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And when the brokenhearted people living in the world agree, here's this phrase that got me, you guys. There will be an answer. So let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be. There will be an answer, let it be. And when the night is cloudy, there is still a light that shines on me, shining till tomorrow. Let it be. It's this phrase, there will be an answer, that stuck with me, and I connected that to Revelation 21, where God says that there's going to be a day when Jesus is going to come back, and he's going to get out his healing powers, and he's going to renew all things. He's going to make all things new, and what that means is there's going to be a day when we're not going to have to go to funerals anymore. We're not going to have to create resurrection walls on temporary construction projects because we don't have to worry about death or pain anymore. God sees what's happening in our midst, and he says, you know what? I got something for that. You know what? You guys should know today that there is an answer. There is an answer that he has for us, right? Not just that there will be an answer someday, and we still wait. The world is not what we want it to be, but I'll tell you what's available to you today, and that's hope. In the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It's not just a name on the side of a church building. It's a byproduct of a relationship with Jesus Christ, and it's available to you today. And here's why. Because in Matthew 28, early on Sunday morning, as the new day was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary, they went to visit the tomb. Their rabbi was dead, right? And you think, oh man, the disciples, they knew what was going on. They just kicked back and relaxed. No, they're hiding behind locked doors at this point. It's the women that are bold and courageous and going to mourn and grieve Jesus. And God's got his plan, always better than our plan. Suddenly there was a great earthquake. An angel of the Lord came down from heaven and rolled aside the stone, and he sat on it, and he delivered a message, all right? He said, don't be afraid. I know you're looking for Jesus who was crucified. And if that's where we stop the story and Jesus is in there, man, this isn't a very hopeful message. But you know what we have to build our hopes on today? It's the very next verse. I don't know if I've ever realized that there's more hope in one verse in the Bible than Matthew 28, verse 6. You can look at almost every word, every phrase in this sentence and realize there is goodness just oozing out of this thing. He isn't here, he says. He's risen from the dead, just as he said would happen. Come and see where his body was lying. And this verse is so good. I just want to unpack it for you quickly here today, right? Truth number one is this, that he isn't here. That Jesus is risen. And if he's risen, that means that's good news. It's not just good news for Brick today that he's alive. Jesus Christ is alive. And if he's alive, then that means that he is victorious. Whatever it is that he has to go up against in this world, we know that he wins. And what's amazing about these victories that God brings us to is sometimes he cares about the big stuff, right? He cares about the big stuff. But I'm amazed so often how he cares about the little stuff. And because he's victorious, you guys, that means that we're victorious. We are victorious. But we don't always live like it. I think we just say, well, Easter's a great holiday. I'm going to put on my pastels. We're going to go to church. And you're missing the best part. Like, trust me, there's some great food to be had on Easter. I love a good brunch. I love a good feast. But this is the best part, the fact that we are victorious. And the good news continues. He's risen from the dead, right? We just talked about that, but here's the line I love. Just as he said, right? He's talked about this relentlessly. I'm sure like the disciples are like, come on, quit with all that death and resurrection talk. And he keeps going, and finally they're like, oh, right? Don't you just love that you can take God at his word? That he backs up his promises. He doesn't just say, I'm the resurrection and the life. He proves it, right? He is the one that we can trust. He is a man of his word, right? And not only that, we can understand that Jesus is life. That's what we get out of this, is the fact that Jesus is life. And we take that very, very seriously around here. Here's one of our core values at Hope. Jesus is life. The rest is just details, right? There's a bunch of words on here. I'll just tell you, it means that we love him. That he is alone our hope. He is the only real and lasting hope for the world. For this reason, we don't apologize for the gospel or putting our relationship with him first in our lives. No, instead, we want to spend our time and energy on this planet knowing that as all these people around us long for life, we want to respond faithfully to the call of Jesus, to follow him, to live with hope above all else in this world, right? This world that would love to compete for our time and our energy. What does that mean in plain English? It means we want to be a Christ-centered church. It means we want to be a church with amazing, hope-filled, miraculous stories because we dare to believe that the tomb is empty and it makes a difference for our life. And I know you may be sitting here today saying, okay, everything you're saying about this guy being put in a tomb and not being here anymore, being raised from the grave, that's as ridiculous as that opening clip, right? I mean, that was some interesting comedy there that those guys have going in Anchorman 2. Some of us think that's pretty silly stuff. And maybe you feel that same way about the resurrection. But you know what God's invitation is to that? I love this in this verse. He says, come and see. And I want to invite you to do the same. As you think about where it is that you need your resurrection, right? As you think about this wall over here and what you can write on it today as a part of the end of the service, I also want to think about your faith. And what does that look like? Not to figure it all out. None of us has it all figured out. If you don't feel worthy to be a part of something involving faith, trust me, God specializes in working with broken people to turn them around and do incredible, incredible things. He will meet you right where you're at. He will find you wherever it is that you are. That's how amazing his grace is. And you may have questions, right? You may have concerns. And I just want to remind you today that you're not crazy for believing in this miracle. All right? Well, I love to kind of think about this stuff. We live in a world that's full of science and full of faith. And sometimes people think, oh, those things are against each other. But Dr. Francis Collins, you know, the guy that oversaw the human genome, project that basically understood and pioneered DNA research. Now, this is what he says. He asks two questions that I think are worth us paying attention to as we think about Easter and what it means for us today. Will we turn our backs on science because it's perceived as a threat to God, abandoning the promise, listen to this, of advancing and understanding our nature, applying that to the alleviation of suffering and the betterment of humankind? Will we say, oh, we're faith people, we don't want to use science because, we're not supposed to, and miss the opportunity to be a bigger blessing to this world? Right? Or he asks this question, alternatively, will we turn our backs on faith, concluding that science has rendered the spiritual life no longer necessary and that traditional religious symbols can now be replaced by engravings of the double helix on our altars? He says both of these choices are profoundly dangerous. Both deny truth. They'll diminish the nobility of humankind and be devastating for our future. The God of the Bible, he says, is also the God of the genome. He can be worshipped in the cathedral or in the laboratory. His creation is majestic, awesome, intricate, and beautiful, and it cannot be at war with itself. Us, we're the ones that take care of that. Only imperfect humans can start such battles, and only we can end them. The invitation is to come and see. And when we do, when we choose to take that step towards God, I wholeheartedly believe that he loves to meet us right where we're at. I've heard too many stories. I've seen too many miracles. And I've seen too many times that God shows up and changes everything. Changing everything is on the table for you today. And it never gets old hearing the stories of how God shows up. Sometimes it's somebody reading the Bible. Sometimes it's some cool story that happens. And sometimes one of your kids just says, hey, we should go to church. And if you're not careful, you could miss a life-changing opportunity. As you listen to the rest of Tony's story here, think about the ways that God's trying to get your attention. And let me just ask you, are you listening? Let's take a look.
I would say a year and a half or 2 years into that, my 13-year-old at the time goes to a sleepover at some of our great friends' house. And she comes home on a Sunday after being at church. And it happened to be Hope and Grimes. And she asked me if we can start going to church. And I remember vividly being super annoyed by the question. Sundays are my time to do laundry, mow the yard, grocery shop, get ready for the week, or do nothing, That's a tough request to say no to, though. So, reluctantly, get all of us up the next Sunday and we show up. The first things that I heard, in church that Sunday was, it's no accident that you're here. We've been praying for you. And unbelievably, the topic of the day is going to be about dads. I can't even express how hard that hit me. I teared up through half of that service probably. And that was the first time, in 45 years probably that I had felt something as deeply as I did around my faith. And so we go home and a week goes by and it's that next Sunday she asked if we can go. So we get up and we go. And the topic of that service was on addiction. And I remember thinking to myself, like I wanted to look around the room and see if I was on like the TV show Punk'd or something. Like this is incredible. So from then on, it's just been a pretty awesome process. And if you knew me 25 years ago, it's semi comical to see me today and how I've been a little more open-minded about learning how Jesus is life. It's okay for me to have been where I've been because today I understand that Jesus forgives me. My name is Tony Burrows, and I wholeheartedly believe that Jesus is life.
Can we give God praise for Tony's story this morning? He was quick to fervently remind me that it's not easy to record a video like that and know that a couple thousand people are going to watch it on Easter. And I said, get over it. I do it every weekend. So, no, I didn't say that. Man, I hear a story and I just think it's something so little, right? And it just makes me think the power of invitation, the power of listening to all generations in the church. They all have something to offer as a part of the body of Christ. And I think about this amazing love of God that wants to use all of us to build his kingdom, to transform and to change lives. And I went back to Joni's funeral again. One of the things that was a part of that as I was prepping for that was Psalm 23. And I love this verse. If you're wondering who God is, Psalm 23 is a great place to start. All right? There's something about this God that we get to worship, and Psalm 23 captures it for me, right? He is a shepherd. In him we have all that we need, right? Just as Tony wants to be a shepherd for his girls, and sometimes that's a lot of work, it's always worth it. And God wants to be a shepherd for you. He wants to take care of you. He wants to protect you. He wants to provide for you. He wants to meet your needs. But there's more to it than that. There's something about this God that we get to worship, right? That he's with us. He doesn't run away. He doesn't laugh at us when we make mistakes. He doesn't judge us harshly as perhaps we even deserve. He offers grace. It says in Psalm 23, even when I walk through the darkest and the loneliest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are with me. But there's one more verse in this that just got me recently. There's been a lot of stuff going on. We've done some hard funerals and some hard situations. A lot of people going through a lot of stuff. You know what I want God to resurrect and get rid of is I want him to get rid of cancer once and for all. And you watch people going through chemo, you watch people coming in with the different haircuts, and you watch families trying to figure out how they're going to get through the next week or whatever, and I just think, man, we have enemies all around us. And as I was prepping for Joni's funeral, this verse 5 of Psalm 23 really got me. You prepare a feast for me. A feast for me in the presence of my enemies. I thought, there's something to that. I'm a big fan of eating meals. Long live the feast, I say, right? And I'm kind of sitting there and I'm thinking about that, and I love that we worship a God who doesn't just say, well, it's going to be okay, you'll get through it, just white-knuckle it and tough it out, right? He prepares a feast for you in the presence of your enemies. That's how victorious he is. He loves to prepare a feast. And I got to tell you, I just got me thinking about some of the feasts in my own life and just how rich and incredible they were. And I just thought about this meal that I got to have years ago now, and I'm still talking about it. And it had nothing. I mean, it had something to do, but not a lot to do. It mostly had to do with the people that were there, right? Not just the food, but the people and the experience. It was amazing. Went to this Italian restaurant. The waiter had an Italian accent, which was huge. It was amazing. And I was like, oh, I'll have this and this and this. And he's like, no. You will not have that. I will tell you what you will have. And I was like, okay, I'm with you. The Italian accent got me. And then he had this phrase. He kept saying, and the night is young, and so are we. Right? It just was this atmosphere. It was incredible. It was beautiful. It was amazing. It was a night that I never wanted to end because it was filled with so much joy and so much peace. And it just made me think God has an incredible feast for us as well. There is a feast that he wants to offer us that is amazing and has the power to transform our lives. And here comes Pastor Murph with something that I don't know what's happening right now.
Hey, Pastor Andy.
How you doing?
Oh, good. And I was listening in here at your sermon. I heard about the feast and everything, and I was like, I was backstage. I was making some food for my family, and I had a little extra, and I thought I'd bring some out to you so you could enjoy the feast too.
Okay, let me hold that for you here.
And I know what you're thinking, like, where are you going to do it? But I actually have something back here for you. I've got a table ready to go, so we're going to get you all set up.
Oh, wow.
When you got to do it right, we got tablecloth. We make this thing happen because, I only work one day a week as a pastor, so it's a lot easier to get this stuff done.
You're prepared. You had time to think about that kind of stuff. Cool.
I want you to know, man, I took good care of you here. I've got for you I've got brisket and some burnt-ends and mac and cheese right there.
Pour me a cup of that. That's what I'm saying. You even know that I'm a slob. You got me a napkin. This is amazing, Murph.
Absolutely. Hey, I got ribs for you, too. We got ribs, and we've got some mac and cheese on our finest Tupperware.
Yes, there
you go. Man, I got some baked beans for you as well.
Oh, wow.
But I tell you what, you got to have the ambiance. So this little flour right there.
Oh, this is amazing.
And some bread and some veggies. Want to get you taken care of. You know you got to eat right? You know that? I do have some dessert for you too. It looks pretty good.
Ooh, little apple cobbler.
Apple cobbler right there.
You guys, this is all for me, none of you. Okay,
and,
I'm just letting you know right now.
You can't have barbecue without barbecue sauce,
right?
right?
Exactly. This is going to be incredible.
Now, would you like? I know you're working. Would you like some of our finest Martinelli's
yes, please.
Sparkling grape juice?
That sounds great. Lovely.
There you go.
All right.
Also, you're going to need a fork.
That's amazing. Thank you.
And would you like a little pepper?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Just say when.
And when?
All right.
Perfect.
All right. Well, you know what? I tell you what. I'll let you get back to your sermon. Enjoy the feast. Oh, before I do, with that feast, you might need the funeral and the news. You know, all the bad things, because you were talking about how God's going to prepare the feast in the presence of our enemies.
Thank you, Murph.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Look at this food, you guys. Murph Hudson, ladies and gentlemen. Pastor Murph. Good luck over there. Don't hurt yourself. Okay. Obviously, there's a lot of food here, and there's a lot to celebrate, and there's a lot that can consume our time and attention. But here's why we wanted to go through all this today. It's so easy to let these things in our lives consume us and overwhelm us and steal our hope and steal our joy. That's why as I talk about that verse from Psalm 23, I don't just want you to hear it in your ears. I wanted to kind of create some aroma, to have that experience, right? It's easy to focus on these things, and they need to be grieved. But don't miss the feast that is in front of you. We worship a God that puts a feast for you in the presence of your enemies. In fact, he came and he conquered it to the extent you don't even need to worry about it anymore. If you're hurting, if you're longing, if you desire to be reconnected with someone, if you desire to be set free, I need you to know that there is a heavenly feast available to you that the God of the universe has already invited you to. And here's the best part about it. It's a feast like no other. I mean, this is some Smoky D's that's been sitting out for 8 hours now already. It's definitely not safe. The feast that God has for you is so much better than anything you could find in this world. It's way too good to hold on to. It's way too good to keep quiet about. And that's exactly what the women do. They run quickly to go find the disciples. And the angel says, remember what I told you. It's easy to get distracted. It's easy to lose hope, right? But remember what I have told you. And they ran quickly, right? They were afraid yet filled with joy, but they ran quickly to tell his disciples that he is risen. And so that's our invitation today, is to run, just like those ladies, to the cross. Run to the tomb. Run to this wall and write it down if you want to. Run to God in prayer. Run to God in whatever way feels comfortable for you, so you can understand and know that the feast has been prepared. And one more time, that he is risen! He is risen indeed. We're going to stand and sing about the freedom that we have because of Jesus Christ as we close out this.